Hey everyone, it's Mr. Anderson again, back with you. Today we're going to talk about section 7.1.4 from our CPM Common Core Algebra book, and it's actually the second time we're going to talk about this material from this unit. I'm going to talk about more items, but we had to break this one up into like two videos because there's more info than we could cram into one, okay? And we're going to use problem 4-75 in order to get started talking about some things that really lend itself to a really nice exponential decay problem. If you haven't seen the first video, you're going to want to go back and watch that one first. But 7-45 refers to 7-44, and it's going to require you to have just a tiny bit of context about this idea called a half-life. So I'm going to read this here, and I've got some of these ideas imported in our notes. But it says carbon-14 dating is used to approximate the age of ancient discoveries and to learn more things about dinosaur fossils. Scientists have studied the rate of decay of carbon-14, it's an element, and have learned that no matter how much of the element they start with, only half of it will remain after 5,730 years. This is called its half-life. So here's the deal. They're using 5,730-year periods in order to evaluate the age of a fossil. And they're going to say, well, how many of these periods have has this dinosaur been around? And they're using the amount of carbon that's left in the skeletal remains or the fossil remains in order to do that. It goes on to say all living things on the planet contain the same proportion of carbon-14 relative to overall carbon in their bodies. Knowing how much carbon-14 to expect, scientists can measure how much carbon-14 is left in ancient items to figure out how much time has passed since the object was living. Okay, and that's really what we're gonna kind of utilize here. But we're gonna move on to 7-45. It says, in addition to helping you learn about exponential decay, half-life can also provide some insight into some special exponent properties. And we're going to use this to remind ourselves of some of those things that we talked about in prior learning that are going to be meaningful here in exponential decay. It says, for example, in part D of problem 744, we would have determined that 100 times 1/2 to the 0 power equals 100. We talked about this in the last video, in fact, okay? And it says, so what must 1/2 to the 0 power equal? It goes on to say, what about 3 to the 0 power? Or -5 to the 0 power? Okay? And how do you use your graphs to help you predict this? Well, as we discussed, that 0 value for x, that's the y-intercept. That's our starting value, okay? And so what anything to the 0 power needs to be is 1, right? In the penny lab from yesterday, this right here, this 1/2 to the 0 needed to be 1 so that we could start with 100 pennies. Okay, and I went ahead and just did this on my Desmos graphing calculator. I took that 1/2 to the 0 and did the calculations. It needs to be 1. I took the 3 to the 0. It needs to be 1. Took the -5 to the 0. It needs to be 1. I don't care how big this number works out to be. If I raise it to the 0 power, it's going to work out to be 1. And there's reasoning for this, okay? We could do something, like a table of values where we continue. Let this be my exponent. Let this be my output, and maybe I have something like, I don't know, 3 to the x power. That's a pretty nice one to work with. Well, I'm going to leave the 0 blank for a second, and I'll just do this. 1, 2, 3, and 4 will work. Okay, 3 to the first power, 3, no problem. 3 to the second power, hit 9, no problem, right? Might get a little hairy from here on out, right? But 3 to the third power, that's 3 times 3 times 3. Trust me when I tell you, that's 27. And I can do it one more time, 3 to the fourth power, that's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 81, right? Now the question is, what then goes back here? Okay, and we're going to use this pattern, this thing that we're able to see. If I'm going this way and multiplying by 3, I can do this every single time, multiply by 3. Well, then alternatively, I can go backwards. And what do you notice about my pattern working backwards? Because I'm not multiplying by 3, what am I doing? I'm dividing by 3. Okay, and that means if I take 3 and divide it by 3, I should get what ends up here. And what is 3 divided by 3? And ding, 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 that's why we see that work out right here, right? 3 to the 0 power works out to be 1. Okay? So that's just a real predictable property of exponents. Anything to the 0 power is 1. You do not need to do that every single time to remember that. If you can just throw that in your little memory banks and say, if something to the 0 power is 1, well then if I have an exponent of 0, it's just like I'm multiplying by my multiplicative identity, okay? If anything to the 0 power, it doesn't matter if it's a number, whole number, positive or negative, what about x to the 0 power? Well, that's going to be 1 as well. Okay? The only disclaimer we've got to make about that is that x can't be 0, right? It's going to cause a conflict that might be over our heads right now. Okay? We started to scratch the surface on this yesterday, but what if x is negative 1? What happens there? According to your graph, how much carbon-14 should there be when x is negative 1? Use this to make sense of 1/2 to the negative 1. Confirm our conclusion with a calculator. Well, here's what we maybe are recognizing here. If I work forward in that carbon-14 example, it's the half-life. I'm taking half and half and half, and if I'm working forward, well, 1/2 is the same as dividing by 2. Well, what happens then if I work backwards? What's the opposite of dividing by 2? Yeah, it is. It's multiplying by 2. So let's make sense of the value. What happens here, and we're going to turn this into that negative exponent rule that we have from prior learning in the previous chapters, and we're going to check it with the Desmos calculators. What happens when I take this 1/2 and I raise it to the negative first power? Well, that's like we just said. That's like multiplying by 2. Okay, and that's what we're going to see here. And I can confirm this, like I said, with Desmos. I'll just go ahead, and if I take my 1/2 and I have to put this, I have to put this in parentheses because I need to make sure the numerator and the denominator are raised to that negative first power. Look what that works out to be. That's a 2. Okay? Because, and I'll pause the video, I'm gonna rehearse my table. I'm gonna draw a table for you guys that might shed some light on this. Give me 1 second, let me pause the video. All right, I paused the video to set this up. I started, here's my half-life example, okay, and recognizing that as we move on each one of these periods, I'm gonna have half of that value remaining, and half of a half is a quarter, half of a quarter is an eighth. So this is like dividing by 2 or multiplying by 1/2. And if I then go the opposite direction, let's check and make sure this works out. That's going to be the same thing as multiplying by 2. Now, is an eighth and an eighth? Is that a quarter? Well, an eighth and an eighth. It's 2/8. That reduces to 2. Okay, yeah, that's a quarter. Okay, let's go again. Is 2 quarters a half? Sure it is. Now, does this check out? We just got done talking about, is that going to be 1? Well, is a half and a half 1? Or is 2 times a half 1? Sure it is, right? And that's anything to the 0 power. Okay, it's 0 power. Now let's go this direction here. One more time. Let's multiply by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Okay? And that's kind of the point. That's what we're after right there. All right? I'm going to back up to our problem here. Now find the value of your equation when x equals negative 2. I'm looking at part C, by the way. Use this information to make sense of the value x equals, it doesn't say x equals, sorry, 1/2 to the negative second power. Then as a team, write a conjecture about the value of x to the negative second when x doesn't equal 0. Test your conjecture on a couple of examples. Well, we're going to go ahead here, and if I work backwards one more time, and if I get rid of this, and I get rid of this, and I add, and I make a negative 2 here, what's this got to be, right? What's that have to be? I'm going to multiply one more time by 2. It's got to make this a 4. Okay? And so in that particular case, 1/2 to the negative second power is going to be 4. Well, what's x to the negative second? Well, if this right here is 4, how do we get 4? Well, I could rewrite 4 as 2 squared. Anyone see a connection between 1/2 to the negative second and 2 squared? It's like I took the denominator, made the exponent positive, and I wrote it kind of in a numerator. So I wonder if the same thing is true here. And it will be. Okay? I then can do the exact same thing here. I can write this as 1/3 squared. But what about this guy? Well, it works out this way to do like that. Okay? We've got one more thing we're going to compare, and then we're going to go ahead and tackle a couple examples. It says, use the graphing calculator to compare these two graphs, and then what do you notice? How does the negative exponent affect the base of the number? I'm going to pause our video, and I'm going to use Desmos to do some graphing so we can visualize. All right, I went ahead and I graphed these. I graphed y equals 1/2 to the x, and I graphed y equals 2 to the negative x. And as you can see, I've got one in red and one in blue. And I see a blue line here. And you might think that, oh, Anderson, you've only got one graph on the screen. Where's the other one? Well, this is where distance learning and maybe using the videos is not a substitute for being in class, because in class we'd have an activity and opportunity to workshop this and unpack this. But check this out. Let me turn this blue line off. Tell me, or think about what you see. What do you notice? Look at that. See that again? Just turned it off, right? So it's not on anymore. Now it's on. I'm going to toggle that. Okay, what are they? They're the exact same graph, and the big takeaway here is that a negative exponent takes the reciprocal of the base of the base number. And what we maybe need to go all the way back to learning with fractions. 2 and 1/2 they're reciprocals of each other, and if the exponent's negative, we're gonna use that reciprocal in order to make that exponent positive. And that's a rule from a rule of positive exponents, and that's how we tackle some of these items here. Because the learning that we have, and I'm going to check out part B, the learning that we have, the prior learning is we don't want to write our answers with negative exponents. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to write the reciprocal of 1/5, and of course it doesn't make a ton of sense to write it as 5 to the first, so I just write it as 5. Likewise, I can take the reciprocal of this. Now, this problem maybe is a little trickier, because if I've got a fraction, I've got to keep it in parentheses, or I could write it like this in order to make sure I'm awarding that exponent to the numerator and denominator. Likewise, I can do this. I can take the reciprocal of 100, and that's 1/100 to the first power. And that looks a little goofy, but hey, oops, sorry about that. That's the same thing as just 1/100. Okay, likewise here, I can rewrite this as 1/6 to the third power. And this is a scenario where if I wrote this as 1 to the third over 6 to the third, well, 1 to the third doesn't really do much, so I could just write it as 1/6 to the third. And I can continue here. A negative exponent just effectively takes -1 for an exponent, just effectively takes that reciprocal. Okay, not the most interesting thing. If you wanted to simplify completely, you could take this as 3/1 squared. And then you can call that, well, 3 squared over 1 squared. 1 squared is just 1. 3 squared is 9, and 9/1 just works out to be 9. So a long way to go to get 9. But we can confirm that using any sort of calculator to do that for you. Ladies and gentlemen, just a little bit of preview here at the tail end of our work today. It's going to be 53 to 56. And again, these are problems we ask you to try because, of course, they're problems that might shed light on what questions we have. So let's go ahead and give these things a shot. Make sure we're giving ourselves the ability to wonder, giving ourselves the ability to ask some questions, and then we got to follow through with the ask. Ladies and gents, thanks for watching. Have a great day.